Greetings, greetings. Welcome to Live Courageously, the podcast number 7 of 2022. I created this podcast show to share the stories of the amazing, courageous friends I am honored to have in my life. I chose the title of Live Courageously because that has been the conscious theme of my life for the last 2 years since the beginning of the pandemic in 2020. If you haven't seen the previous podcasts, you can watch them on my Live Courageously YouTube channel, and I recommend you check them out. We're living in very challenging and dangerous times, and a natural reaction is fear. But fear is just a reaction, but courage is a choice. And it's because of that reality you need to consciously choose courage to get through what's coming. On earlier shows, I talked about the 6 types of courage: physical courage, social courage, moral courage, emotional courage, intellectual courage, and spiritual courage. I believe my guest today has all those and maybe even a 7th type of courage. So let me introduce you today to my guest, a very special friend, Dana LIESEGANG. And Dana graduated with honors from Colorado Mesa University. She's the author of Falling Up, My Wild Ride from Victim to Kick-Ass Victory, with the foreword written by Dr. Wayne Dyer. She has had the honor of speaking on stages with Dr. Wayne Dyer and also other speakers: Anita Moorjani, Scarlett Lewis, Immaculée Iligabiza, and Kate McKinnon, and many others. In 2014, Dana received the Hero of Forgiveness Award given by the Worldwide Forgiveness Alliance. She currently is an inspirational speaker and a coach in independent living skills and spinal cord injury recovery. She has joined Scarlett Lewis, spreading the formula for choosing love over hate. And that formula, as she shares, is courage plus gratitude plus forgiveness plus compassion equals choosing love. She is a Choose Love ambassador, getting social emotional learning into schools in grades K to 12. Dana, that just is all, it can't even begin to capture who Dana is. She has had a truly amazing story of resilience, courage, overcoming, grit, forgiveness, compassion, and love. And I could go on and on for a long time. You have to get and read her book, Falling Up, on Amazon or in your bookstore, if it's the only book you read in 2022. If you need a shot of courage, you need a shot of compassion, a grit, forgiveness, love, you must read her book, Falling Up. But I'm going to warn you, it will take you through pain. It'll take you through hurt. And before you get to the other side, and then you'll find strength, courage, healing, and hope. But also make sure that you have a large box of tissues, because you're going to cry as you read it. And I know guys like to say, their eyes are sweating, but I was crying. I was crying reading it. And I'm not afraid to admit it, because it's powerful, it's inspiring, but it touches your heart and it touches your emotions. So that is, in a brief summary, a little bit of who I'm bringing on right now. Is welcome, Dana, to the show.
Thank you very much for that amazing introduction. Almost brought tears to my eyes. I was like, whoa, that was so beautiful. Thank you.
You're more than welcome. And rereading your book last night, especially some of the chapters, they did bring tears back to my eyes again, and it reminded me when I read it the first time how deeply it touched me. So I always like to start off the show with 2 things. And the first is how we met, since we obviously have met. And so I asked that of the guests: how did we connect? And then I also asked, the next question is, what does Live Courageously mean to you? But let's start with the first. How did we meet? How did we come into each other?
We connected through Tony Rodriguez, and then you miraculously showed up out of nowhere at a Joseph McClendon event that just flooded my heart with joy to just meet you and see you in person. It was just amazing. I was like, oh my gosh, you came all the way down here.
Well, you're right. We were introduced by Tony Rodriguez, who's an amazing human being out of New Jersey, and all kinds of things. At some point, I got to bring him on the show. But he told me about you, and he, shared a little bit about who you were. And I remember we connected by phone, and you were so generous. You sent me a copy of the book with a nice sweet message in it. And I sent you a copy of the DVD, The Flag, that I had directed.
Oh, I love The Flag.
And that was so cool. And then when Tony told me you were going to be in Irvine, which is only, I guess, an hour from where I am, it was like, okay, I'm there. How do I get there? What time? When do I need to meet? And when I came up and you were sitting there, and it was a surprise because he didn't tell you. I mean, the look in your face was priceless. It touched my heart. You know, you just lit up. I lit up, and we had a chance to hug. We took a picture.
Oh, so good.
I'm going to show the picture. This is the picture. I cut out Joseph in the background. Joseph is a great guy and a good friend as well, but I wanted to focus on the three of us. And that's us there. So that was, it was so cool. And unfortunately, we didn't have a lot of time together because you were in the middle of the seminar with Tony. And so we spent lunch together and got a chance to talk a little bit. And then, of course, you had to get back to the seminar. So,
well, you said that you were only an hour away, but LA, going anywhere in LA is, you know, you could go take an hour for 2 miles. I've been in that.
An hour in a good day. I don't think it was a good day, but it was more than an hour. But yes, in LA, a 10-minute ride can be a 2.5-hour ride. So
yeah. So I'm like, that was a pretty big deal.
Well, it was well worth it because I had already talked to you on the phone. I read your book, and here was an opportunity for me to get to meet you personally. And that was something that I was honored and really glad to have a chance to do that. So yeah, I mean, for me, that was nothing. And I'm glad I took the time to meet you there. So that was cool. So the second question is, and like I said, you know, you exemplify so many types of courage, and this show is Live Courageously. And you know, if there's more types of courage, you exemplify them. But what does Live Courageously mean to you, Dana?
Living courageously for me means living outside the box. Don't let other people's voices come into you and keep you from living your dreams. And don't let not even your family. I'm like, everybody has an opinion of how you should be or what you should do. And then society has its parameters of what we're supposed to do. And during this pandemic, I mean, like, we were supposed to just lock down and stay home, but live outside the box and be courageous and know within yourself that there's something bigger and it needs to shine. So allow your light to shine, I guess.
Well, I'm gonna start more in the present before I go back and introduce a little bit of your story. And like I said, anybody and everybody who watches this, you just have to pick up a book and read it because it will touch you on so many levels, and it's so powerful a book. And I say that as somebody, I've read thousands of books. That one of my biggest passions in life is reading, and the book moved me. So we're going to get to that, but I want to kind of deal with some of the physical courage, because, you know, I'm impressed by, as you told me a little bit in person, but then of course reading the book and a little bit of watching you online, some of the physical things that you've gone through, some of the sports things that you've done. And I'm always impressed. I'm like, I haven't done any of those things. I'm like, God, that's badass. So tell me a little bit about those things. And then, like I said, we're going to start a little bit in the present, and then we'll take the audience back to how this journey started for you and how you went and overcame. And what you just said, you know, don't listen to other people's opinions. You have to have yours own, and you did. And because that, who you are today is who you are. So tell me a little bit about that for you, some of the amazing things you've done in your life and that you're proud of physically and sports and athletically.
One of the things I'm really proud of is that I'm the first quadriplegic in the nation with a Class A commercial driver's license. That was really fun. And I've gone skiing, rafting. I've rafted through the Grand Canyon twice. That was super fun. I've traveled the world.
Dangerous. I saw in your thing, I was looking, that wasn't exactly not dangerous.
It wasn't exactly not dangerous, no. I mean, like, Grand Rapids go from a class 1 to a 5 in a normal river. The Grand Canyon goes from 1 to a 10. There's some big water in the Grand Canyon. But so, and I accidentally drowned twice.
You accidentally what?
Drowned twice.
Wait.
I fell
What
out.
does
I'm
that
a
mean?
member of
What
the
does that
Grand
mean?
Canyon swim team.
Okay. So you ended up in the water
Yes,
twice.
twice.
And what was that experience like?
You know, the first time, well, I've drowned twice, but in two different rivers. So one was colder than the other. It was much easier in the colder water.
Huh.
You just die really fast. And like they resuscitated me while I was in the water. And
Really?
it was the most peaceful experience. It really was.
Wow.
Dying is nothing to be afraid of. And I think that's part of why I live courageously is, you know, I've had a few near-death experiences and I realized how short life is and how important it is to live fully. And when I broke my neck and they were like, nope, you're not going to move from the neck down. I'm like, yeah, no, that doesn't work. We're going to overcome this. And, and today I still am working on overcoming. And then the last 2 years, I took the last 2 years to really dive deep into different modalities. And I'm starting to get like some finger function back in that finger. That's brand new in the last 2 years. And I'm 31 years post injury. So there's just no end to healing if you're willing to do the work and go the extra distance. And as far as the sports go, I love my sports. They've been a lifesaver because whenever I've kind of gotten in the mode of you get down every now and then, I've had the Disabled American Veterans Winter Sports Clinic to go to, and everybody around me is like a family. And I'm going skiing, and they have a rock climbing event, and I'm doing downhill and cross country and snowmobiling, and they've got fly fishing and shooting. There's like so many different things wrapped up into one clinic. And then for the summer, there's the Paralyzed Veterans Wheelchair Games where I played quad rugby and I went hand cycling and wheelchair racing and swimming and shoot, what else? Softball, obstacle course. There's like sports have been a really big thing in my life just to keep you going and the camaraderie. It just keeps you going.
And like I said, I keep teasing the audience. We're going to go back and just kind of take it from the beginning. But until I do that, the camaraderie of working with other vets at the disabled veterans, all those events. What is that like? Because I know, that's having people who are part of your tribe, your team, your family, who are, experiencing the same thing, supporting each other and going through that and challenging each other to go beyond what their limitations, other people's ideas or what their limitations are, right?
Yeah, I mean, I always say that the only limitations I have are the ones people put on me. I don't feel limited at all. I feel like I live an unlimited life. Yeah, I use a wheelchair to get around, but it's just how I walk at this point. I mean, I can walk some and I've earned that, but the camaraderie is they don't let you fall back. Like the veteran world is so beautiful because the camaraderie that we had in service, we took into the same disabled veteran world. And I am so grateful for the Vietnam veterans because they have a special place in my heart, because without them, I wouldn't be who I am. They showed me the ropes and they wouldn't let me, you need help, little girl? You need some help, little girl? They don't cut you any slack. Like they're there when you fall, but they were there to push me forward. And I just am so grateful to the hard work that they put in, because it's their work that brought me to where I'm at. And then it was my job to help the vets coming in from Iraq war and help them come up. And I have become a cross-country ski instructor in the 30 years of going to the winter sports clinic. So I went from a participant sit skiing to stand-up skiing to being a instructor. And helping create some equipment that helped other people be able to stand up and ski. So I'm like, it's kind of, I guess I feel like that's more my legacy. I think, just helping others rise.
Well, all of what you just shared and all the stuff that you do without letting other people's limitations stop you. I think it's just for people watching, people allow so many limitations on their life, and they have a lot less reasons to have those limitations, and they still have those limitations. And they don't realize that the power of going beyond your limitations is within you, and you exemplify it in so many ways, obviously, because you have a physical challenge that a lot of people don't have, and that didn't stop you. And so going back to the first physical challenge that you went through, the first sport thing when you were going through it, and then I'm going to have to take the audience back to the beginning, unfortunately, to get us through the story. But on that first experience, that first athletic experience for you, what was that like? It must have been, now you've done 30 years, you've left a legacy with doing all this, but the first one couldn't have been easy. The first one had to be hell, to speak kindly.
It was, I wouldn't call it hell. It was exhilarating. It was it was exhilarating. I'm like, I was paralyzed from the chest down and no hand function. And I was skiing. I was out there. I was so excited to be able to get on the mountain. So it was terrifying and it was challenging. But again, I was surrounded with joy and love and courage all around me. So the fear was like, what anybody would have going down a mountain on skis for your first time. And I was doing it sitting for the first time. I skied before I broke my neck, but I've gone faster sit skiing than I ever did standing. And skiing from the top of Mount Crested Butte to the bottom, they tethered me down. They had, tethers tied to the back of the ski, and they were monitoring my speed. And when you crash, it hurts pretty much. It hurts, but it's just, if you're not crashing, you're not skiing, right? If you're just not trying hard enough. And it was just, it brought more inspiration to my life, because at that clinic, I also met someone who was in a wheelchair that climbed Half Dome. Like, he's paralyzed. How are you rock climbing? But he's invented stuff for that. And I was like, yay, I'm going to try something new. And so that inspired me. And I think it just drove me forward. It really wasn't hell. It was just new and different, a different way of doing what I used to do.
How old were you when you did that time?
22.
22. Wow.
My first sports was quad rugby. My very first sport that I tried was quad rugby. Now that was a little bit scary, because you get four people on a team. I don't know if the Paralympics, quad rugby is pretty popular in the Paralympics now. But then in 1990, I was like, oh my God, these guys are slamming into each other and they're crashing into each other. It's like crash derby soccer on a basketball court using a volleyball and in wheelchairs. And your goal at my job as a slower, low point player was to just get in the way. And so I had to let people just crash into me. So that was a little scary. That was new.
Let's put it this way. It sounds a lot more scary than bumper cars at the amusement park. That's for sure.
Yeah, and I was the only girl for years. It was the only female playing.
Wow. And, so now I'm going to just say, take us through as much as you want to take us back. Because, you mentioned being the first quadriplegic to get a Class A driver's license. So you're leaving legacies in sports. But how did you end up? You said 22 was when you first did that particular sports event. But you started out as a younger girl, at a woman as 18, joining the military.
Yeah, I joined the military at 18.
And that was the beginning. So share as much or as little as you want of that. And then like I said, we're going to move forward, because what I really want the audience to get is the power of who you are today as a writer, as a speaker, as an inspirer, as all these things, because that's what I think people need to learn from, is who you are and who you become, all because of your courageous will. But tell us as much of that, just to kind of give us a little perspective.
Well, conveniently, this is Military Sexual Trauma Awareness Month. And I joined the Navy when I was 18, and 6 months into my tour, another sailor raped me, choked me out, and threw me off a 75-foot cliff. And it was Sunset Cliffs in San Diego. And I was left for dead. I had my neck broke from C1 down. I was paralyzed like Christopher Reeves in the beginning. And the doctors told my parents I wasn't even going to survive because there was so much damage internally. And I was in a coma and I had a brain injury. And they're like, and if she does survive, she's not going to be able to be very communicative. And so I overcame that bit, the first part of it. And when it's, I'm on a respirator. When I woke up from a coma, I kept biting on the respirator because I wanted to breathe on my own. I'm like, if I have to be this way, it's going to be on my terms. So I decided from the get-go that I was going to make this my way. That's kind of my personality anyway, really. And I've been through a lot of different treatments. And once I was breathing on my own, I was like, well, the doctors were wrong they said I was going to die. They were wrong about that. They said I would never breathe on my own. They're wrong about that. Then they told me you'll never be able to take care of yourself. 3 years in post-injury, they were wrong about that. I am fully independent, no nurse. I can do everything. I drive, I do all this, take care of myself just fine. And they were like, oh, well, you'll never walk. I'm like, watch me. And so 10 years post-injury, I took my first steps. And I've used skiing and I've used my sports to keep propelling me forward and to raise the bar for myself. And I don't know if you can see behind me, but there's an elliptical and a treadmill. And that I use those. And I've just not stopped, and I won't stop until I leave this chair. And then I'll do something new. I'll just keep going. I'll push that bar even higher. Maybe I'll climb Everest. I don't know.
Well, all of that is just mind-boggling. I don't even know, for a guy, I'm speechless, which is unusual for me. But as I think it's just the important thing that I could take away from that is when people who were experts told you what wasn't possible, you chose to not hear that message, not to make them wrong, but it was your life. That's what they knew. That's what they believed. That was their limiting belief about that situation, given their experiences maybe, but they didn't know you. They only knew what they knew, and you knew you. And you made a choice to not buy that message. And if you bought that message or you bought that belief that they had, you would have had a different life. I would say a very different.
I would probably still be on a respirator if I'd have listened to what their belief was, and their medical, and they're amazing. The medical profession is amazing. I love them. And I am grateful that they saved my life. But they can only do so much. And they are trained to tell you the worst scenario. And they don't know who's inside. You get to decide that for yourself. You get to say, I accept this to a certain degree or not accept it. And I chose to keep pushing forward. And I was like, it didn't make sense to me. I'm like, I refuse. to stay in a wheelchair for the rest of my life. Not that being in a wheelchair is the end of the life, clearly, because I've lived so much more fully in this chair than I think I would have when I was 19, because, I was typical kid. You get to drink beer on base, you go to the bar, you have fun, right? And now I get to experience life from a vantage point of how precious life is. I got to learn how precious life was very young, and that living life to its fullest was really important. And I could have listened. I could have, but that's just never been my personality.
And, and because it wasn't, you went on that journey, and I remember I saw a movie that kind of reminds me of your journey. It was about a boxer who got into a car accident and became a paraplegic, and the doctors told him the same kind of thing: you'll never walk again. And he said to them, "Okay, so but when am I going to fight again?" He was a champ, and they were like, "No, you didn't hear us. You're not going to walk again." He says, "Yeah, I know. When am I going to fight again?" Well, he ended up coming back and fighting and being a boxer again. So once again, they knew what they knew, and he knew him, and that's you. You're just, if people would just, I hope as they watch this, just understand the power inside you that you had that overcame. And we all have that power.
We all have it, for
We
sure.
have to make that decisions. And a lot of times we don't. We make a weaker decision, or we don't even make a decision to move forward. But the other side of it is, besides not listening to the doctors, you also had a choice, which we have a lot of times in life, to live our life, the rest of our life, as a victim because of something that happens to us in life that is horrible, is tragic, is wrong, is all those things combined. But what do we do with that incident determines what our life's going to be. And sometimes it's not easy to not be a victim in the situation like that. It's easy to be a victim. That's normal. It's human. It's everything. But you didn't. And that's the other part of who you are, and your courage, and maybe just your choice to live courageously and not be a victim. And like your book, Kick Ass, tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I like to, I was a victim that night. And you're not a victim for the rest of your life unless you take on the victim attitude. And it would be easy to do that, because I have every reason in the world to do that, right?
Yep.
But I chose to push forward, and at one point I was able to forgive. It took me 21 years to be able to forgive and really understand that forgiveness is not condoning what happened. It's not saying, "Oh, well, I forgive you, it's okay." No, it's absolutely not okay. But what the forgiveness is for your own self. It's to let go of the anger and the hate and the poisoning of your own body, and to move forward and let that weight go off of your shoulders. The person that put me in this chair had his own cross to bear. And I don't know what happened to him in his life. And he was only 18. I don't know what made a young man so angry at the age of 18. All I know is what I could do with that. And that is to move forward. I could stay stuck, but what good does that do? I could drink poison and hope he dies, but what good does that do? So that's what the anger is. Anger is poison in your body and my body. And I didn't want that. I had it for 21 years. Believe me, I had a lot of anger. And, every now and then you fall back a little bit and you have to choose to forgive again. But I always say it's not what happens to me that defines me. It's what I do with it. It's not what happens to you. It's what you do with it. And I've chose to excel as best I can in my life and enjoy it. Go skydiving and scuba diving and raft through the Grand Canyon and drive an 18-wheeler. These are things that I would have done as an able-bodied person walking around. Why wouldn't I do them now? I just have to alter it a little bit and work a little harder.
that may be another, form of courage, the forgiveness, because the power of that is so, like you said, it isn't it because your anger was righteous. Your what you felt all those years was righteous, and at the same time, what you were trying to accomplish was for you to heal, to get stronger, to be the best you could be, given the reality that you didn't create of that situation. And you found your way there. And forgiveness is something that is what may be one of the hardest things to get to in some situations more than others. I mean, in some situations, people can't even get to it in minor situations, and it's just nothing to forgive, and yet they can't even get there. But in some situations like yours, there's all kinds of things to get in the way of being that powerful to forgive. But you found it there, and I know in the last chapter of the book, and your book is kind of in three sections. Before the fall, the fall, and then the onward, and after the fall, and then onward. And in that last chapter, you just talk about how you did it. And I'm not going to get into all that because people should read the book, and they should really. But I'm going to say it's going to break your heart, and it's going to re-heal your heart if you read that chapter after you've read the rest of the book. And it's going to give you something. If you need to be a person to forgive, then you're going to find maybe the ability to do it. So I would just encourage people, please read the book. Please read that last chapter and let it break your heart and let it heal your heart at the same time. But yeah, I think that's just, forgiveness is not an easy place, and it, and yet you got there.
It's definitely not an easy place, but it is possible.
Yeah.
And the word impossible, just break that apart, and it's I'm possible. And I really like that.
Well, now let's go through some of your other journey. And thank you for sharing that. I know that's not easy to get into. You went through so many journeys, and one of the influences on your life is Dr. Wayne Dyer, and you read a lot of his material, and you've had some great interactions with him. And for people that don't know him, I remember listening to, and this is going to age me real bad, but I remember listening to cassette tapes from Nightingale Conan of him, listening to his material when I was going on my personal development journey, and the material that he shared that was so powerful. But you kind of dived into a lot of that material, and then you had a chance to get to know him, meet him, speak on his stage, just some amazing things. So share a little bit of that, because that's like cool stuff. So yeah, let's go there.
Yeah, Wayne was a huge element in my life when I had hit a pretty low point in my early 20s, and I didn't even know who he was. I went to a health expo in Austin, and everybody's like, "Oh, Wayne Dyer, Wayne Dyer, Wayne Dyer." I'm like, I don't know who this guy is. And I ended up at a bookstore about 2 weeks after this expo, and I was trying to figure out, I'm like, God, I'm in this marriage. Do I need to get out of this marriage? How do I get out of this marriage? And then this book falls off the shelf in front of me. It's called Manifest Your Destiny by Dr. Wayne Dyer. I was like, what? This guy again? And I'm like, all right. So I ended up reading his book, and I listened to his book on tape, and it changed my life right then and there, because I was like, this guy says I can manifest my way out of this chair the rest of the way. And I was at a point where I thought maybe I was going to end up staying in the chair forever. My God, is this it? Is this really it? And it came right at that right time to just give me that little extra oomph. I'm like, all right, he says I can do it. I'll do this. And it was that year that I was able to stand up and ski with, I had, braces on my legs and ankles. And I was like just moving my legs as much as I could, but I was doing it, and I was upright. I'm like, I went 10 feet, but I was upright. And so that was success. And then you fast forward that to, I think 2010 or 11, in there somewhere, where I was kind of in another spot where I was feeling a lot of post-traumatic stress that, quote unquote, what happened to me didn't happen to me. And so how do I have post-traumatic stress? Because this didn't really happen. And of course it did. And I'm in Costa Rica and I'm having a hard time. I'm listening to I believe it From Ambition to Meaning. And I just kept re-listening to it and re-listening to it. And I'm like, I gotta thank this guy for all that he's done for me. And in that, he said he had chronic lymphocytic leukemia and he was healing himself from that. And I'm like, oh my God, I got to meet him before he dies. So I immediately signed up for a trip to Australia and got on a cruise. And within days, I manifested myself at a personal dinner with him. And his daughter, Serena, oh, God bless her heart and soul, she wanted to put part of my story in her book. And I'm like, of course you can. And her book is Don't Die With Your Music Still In You. And that was one of Wayne's big messages, is don't die with your music still in you. Wow. And I guess that's what I'm doing right now, is sharing my music. But I met him and he's like, you need to go see John of God in Brazil. John of God has turned out to be not the greatest, but ironically, that was where I found forgiveness. And I came back and I said, Wayne, this is what happened. And he's like, you're writing a book. And I'm like, holy crud. This is crazy. I'm not a writer. He's like, don't worry about it. We'll get you help. And so he's like pulling me up on stage. He's like, you're a natural. And I have his hat to this day. It's one of my most cherished possessions. And I feel him still with me. You know, he would say, when I pass, when I go to the other side, just ask for help, because I'll still be there. I'm just think of it as if I'm just in the next room behind a closed door, but you can still talk to me. And so I use that quite often. And I feel like he is who led me to Tony Robbins' event, which led me to meeting Tony Rodriguez, which led me to meet you, which led us. I mean, it's like all these synchronicities and life happening for us, not to us. It's like so beautiful. And without Wayne, I don't think I would have come forward the way I have and shared my voice. I wouldn't be sharing my voice without Tony Rodriguez either, and without you, and the courage to speak up about military sexual trauma. And you're always afraid that someone's going to blame you. And it always feels like, you know, there's in the back of your mind, had I done this, what if that? And like, why didn't I? And we try to think that somehow society still wants to say, well, what were you wearing? I'm like, what were you drinking? I'm like, no. So you get another bit of courage to come forward. And without my interaction with Wayne, I wouldn't have done any of that. I would have just kept my story to myself and moved on. And I have been chastised before as that your story is not yours to keep, it's yours to share, because others may benefit. And that is my biggest hope. And for writing the book, is that others will come forward, because the more we come forward, the more we talk about it, the more out in the open it is, the less it's going to happen, because it's not as normalized within the culture. You know, they say we live in a rape culture. It's more of a rapist culture, because it's the rapist that's committing the act. I mean, that's
absolutely. Absolutely.
And Wayne helped me see a lot of that.
And in the, I believe it's the end of the book, the epilogue of the book, you talk a lot more about that issue of sexual and abuse and rape in the military, and you get into that deeper, so people can read that in the book. I think they'll get also some more understanding of that issue as well. But like you say, you know, you met Wayne and you manifested it, and it's kind of, the book fell off the shelf. And I years ago, I was at the GI Film Festival, and somebody dropped this term that I had never heard before about God's wink, and that it was a God's wink. And I was like,
Yeah.
that's a cool way of saying it. That's interesting, because I've had those moments just like you in your life, that this leads to this, leads to this. And I didn't plan those things. I didn't, it wasn't like I sat and said, okay, then I'm going to go do this. And then no, most of it was like something happened, the door opened. And so I went to Tony Robbins, and that flipped my life forever. And that all came because I was listening to motivational tapes when I was working in Jack Lane. And all of a sudden, the sales guys gave me these tapes, and I'm like, what's this weird stuff? Next thing I know, I'm listening, I'm going, hey, this is cool. And so next thing, another door opens, and that leads to the kind of life I have today by going through that seminar, and then meeting Tony and meeting you and meeting all the amazing people that if I had stayed in the Bronx and stayed working in the post office on the midnight shift as a mail handler, I would have had a very different life. And the life would not have been this life. And I wouldn't have experienced all the things I've gotten to experience, because I went through those doors and said, okay, what's next? And then let me see what I can do with this. And then what's next? And, I think it's that we step forward in fate sometimes. And you definitely step forward into fate, into so many different parts of your life. And one of them is writing the book. So Wayne planted the seed. Now tell us about that. How did you go
Wayne planted the seed, and he had me write it. He wrote the foreword. He's like, there's no saying no to this, basically. You're writing a book. And then it got published through Hay House, and he had every intention on bringing me on stage and taking me around and promoting the book. And he passed away in August of 2015. So that, that didn't manifest. And that's, I think, another perfect divine alignment in order to align me with the message of, it's not really about what happened. It's about the forgiveness and what I've done with that. I've excelled in life in the face of, I guess, adversity, and it's okay to be proud of that. I've hidden from being proud of it, and it's okay to be proud of your success.
100%, and to really celebrate your success, because you've accomplished much more than, I'm skiing, never done it, river rafting, never done it. So I know, but all the things that you've achieved, skydiving, scuba diving, all that stuff, but that's just that's a small part of who you are. The other part is, like you said, the touching people, the book. It's like I always say, it's like a pebble in the water. You throw the pebble in and you get a ripple effect, and you don't know who you touch and who then they touch because of what you just did and what you gave into the world. And your book is a gift to everybody who gets to read it, but it touches people who didn't even get to read it, because the person who did read it gets a message, and they may do things differently in their life thanks to you and what you shared by sharing your story in your book. So we all grow and benefit. So I'm grateful for having read the book and how you touch my life with it. But that's and then you wrote the book, which I've written 2 memoirs, and I tell you, they were painful. I'm not a writer.
It is painful.
It's painful, especially for non-writers and people who are social. It's like, God, I don't want to do this, but after, and you did it, and so I admire you for having the courage and listening to that, push and going, and then that led to you speaking. So tell us a little bit about some of the other things, and then some of the groups you got involved with and the awards you got. So tell us about that part of the journey as well for you.
Wayne Dyer also wrote the foreword for a friend of mine. Her name is Scarlett Lewis, and she shared a co-author. And so that connection, it's all these synchronicities. Everything happens for a reason. And I'm convinced that at this point, becoming a quadriplegic has been a gift more than anything. It's been my gift to give back to society. And I'm helping Scarlett Lewis as being a Choose Love ambassador for social emotional learning in schools. Her son, Jesse, was shot in the head in the Sandy Hook shooting, and Scarlett forgave, and I forgave. So we've come together in that where the most heinous acts have been forgiven, and it's possible to do that and make something in life out of it, turn a negative into a positive, no matter, and there's nothing that compared to losing a child, but she turned something into it, and she made the Choose Love movement, and I'm honored to be on that tour with her in the Choose Love movement, because everyone has a choice. You can choose hate or you can choose love. You can choose fear or you can choose courage. You can choose anger or you can you have a choice in life. And so I've been blessed to be with her, and I've done some speaking engagements with Tony Rodriguez, and I continue to do speaking around town where I live. And COVID put a damper on a lot of that, and just starting to get back out into it again. I didn't stop during COVID though. I went to some events by Dr. Joe Dispenza, and that's how I started getting some finger function back. Like, it sounds crazy that just meditation and changing your brain waves is going to change your ability, but I really feel that the forgiveness, and you're just keeping on that forgiveness train, and joy, and keep doing good in the world and making something more of who you are to help raise the vibration of society. And that, Wayne used to say, I'm not better than anyone else, but I am better than I used to be. Right. And that's how I feel about me. My growth is so that I can put out into the world a positive vibration. And when you have a positive vibration, you affect everyone around you. And that's where you're saying that's that ripple effect. So you put out this positive energy, and it's going to connect to somebody else's energy. And eventually all that energy becomes a wave. And then you're affecting more and more people as you go, just drawing them in. Excuse me.
All of those things, like you said, you shared, and you shared forgiveness, you shared love, you're involved in both speaking. And Tony Rodriguez is an amazing guy. When he told me your story, I mean, we tease each other because he's from New Jersey, I'm from New York, and we have fun teasing each other. But he's such an inspiration, and he has his own overcoming story. But you're getting up there and doing that, and being not letting anything stop you. I just think it is just such a message, because even during COVID, the last 2 years, you were able to go out and you faced more health challenges than most, and you were able to go out and do stuff, and you did not accept that what you should be living in was fear. You did not accept that. Right. And that was what was being promoted to all of us, was that what was the best reaction? Fear. Be afraid, be really afraid. And that was what we were being sold as a product. And it's like, to me, I looked at it as like, growing up in the South Bronx, it's like heroin. Just because they reduced the price of heroin don't mean you should buy it. It's still heroin. So it's like, hey, it's cheaper heroin. Yeah, but it's heroin.
Yeah, let's get it.
Yeah, good luck. But, fear, whether it's free or cheap or, every 24 hours a day, it's not a product you should buy. It's just not a product we need. We need courage. That's the product.
We have a choice. You have a choice to choose courage over fear.
That's right.
And that's what this living courageously is all about, right?
Yeah. And your life, you will expand dramatically because of that. You'll have these experiences like you've had because of that. And I remember I read a book, and I can't remember what it was, a guy Kaufman, I think, but it was about choice. And when I was living in the Bronx at the time, and it was a message that just resonated so strong. It was like, up until that point, I played victim. I had excuses. I blamed everybody because I lived in poverty and blah, 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 blah. But all of it was nonsense, because it came down to, I had a choice. What did I want tomorrow to be and today to be was up to me, nobody else. And when I
Right.
realized that, I was like, wow, that's powerful. That's powerful. Because if I don't believe that, the alternative is I go nowhere. I stay in the same place.
Right.
Right.
Absolutely.
And so that's kind of what you did. You took that thing of choice. What else would you like to share, and tell us a little bit of some of the things that you have that you can share in the future that you want to manifest and make happen, or just anything you want to share beyond what we've talked so far with the audience.
Well, I my biggest thing for those who have survived sexual trauma, military sexual trauma, it's very important that you know it's not your fault in any way, shape, or form. And if you can and you have the courage, and I know that they have it inside them, tell someone you trust, not necessarily your family member or a friend, maybe a professional, so that you can reach out and get help with some of the post-traumatic stress. Because post-traumatic stress has been pretty big in my life, and I just didn't know it because I wasn't, it was swept under the carpet. And I was supposed to just suck it up, buttercup, move forward at this, and I think it's important that people get help with the trauma, get help with overcoming, because sometimes you reach a point where, I'm 31 years post injury, and I finally hit a point where I was like, oh, I actually do need a little bit of help with some of this stuff that's coming up. And with the meditations and with cognitive therapy, and, it's okay to blend different stuff together. You can't just think yourself positive out of it. You have to start feeling some of it inside yourself. You have to feel worthy and know that we're worthy. We are worthy of love. We are worthy of healing. We are worthy of joy. We are worthy of being courageous. And sometimes that means we have to reach out to someone else to get there. And that's what I'm currently doing. Next week, I will be going to a Dr. Joe Dispenza event, which they're super fun, for one. And you get to go really deep and learn the science behind meditation. It's not just sitting there and going, oh, no, there's a lot of science. There's too much science for me to go into it right now. But and that's what's been, I'm still recovering. There is no end. I guess that's the other point. There's no end to recovery. There's no end to learning, because when you stop learning, you die. Whether you're still alive, you'll still die. You just die while you're alive. And growing is crucial. And no one grows from hanging out in comfort, right? We have to push our limits, push that comfort zone in order to grow.
Just want to repeat that you can die while you're alive, and that's even worse death. And I think that's such a powerful message you just kind of laid out, where you got to get out of the comfort zone. You got to grow. As long as you're growing, you're living. I say, I'm going to stop growing when I look up in the 6 feet of dirt on top of me. That may be the end of at least my growth on this plane. What happens after that, I don't know. But, up until that point, it's about growth. It's about learning. It's about, relearning. It's about rethinking. It's about all, just setting more possibilities for yourself. And you're right. That is the way to live no matter what. And you've been a model. In the preface of your book, and after what you just shared, your journey and what happened to you when you were young, you start out this book with a preface that says, I write this memoir with much love in my heart. And then you go on from there. And I'm going, thinking about that when I read it, was here's what you went through, such, trauma, such a horrible experience. And you start off with, I write this book with much love in my heart. And I think that's what captures you and captures why everybody should read this book. But it's just like what a powerful affirmation of what's important in life. And
Yeah.
maybe and just share a little bit of that with us.
I've learned to love myself in many different ways. And I actually, through some of the people I met, Michelle Soros, I went to Rhythmia Life Center in Costa Rica and did plant medicine and had some huge growth through the plant medicine. And I feel more connected to my soul and my heart now more than ever. And I just feel very fortunate that love is our nature. Love is our nature, when we get down to the true core and the truth. And I think there was where the plant medicine helped me, was see that my true core is love. And when I show love, love comes back. If you show anger, anger comes back. And when you merge with, they say there that you merge your heart and your soul with the plant medicine, and I merged. And there's just so much truth and love in the world that everybody has. They just sometimes get lost, and I went through a lot of mud and muck to get to the meadow on the other side. And now I can't feel anything else but love, really. I'm like, yeah, I will get angry and I will react, but I always come back to my truth and my heart, and the core of who I am is love. And the core of everybody, when we're born, we are love.
100%.
And somehow that gets society, whatever, life, it kind of goes away. And then you merge back with your heart, and there it is again, love.
Indeed. I'm just going to throw up a couple of quick pictures. Here's your book, Falling Up, for everybody. Make sure you take a chance to go on Amazon, look at this book, buy it, read it, share it, send it to your friends, send it to your family. By all means, this is a powerful book, one of the most powerful books I've read. So please check it out. And then, of course, there's just some pictures. One of the things, here's a picture of you, obviously. That is you, right? Yeah.
That is me.
And God, look at that in the background. That's just an amazing
That
picture.
is the Colorado National Monument.
Oh, really? And then there's another one of you.
Hand cycling in Mount Crested Butte.
And then here's another one with your dog, previous dog. Is this the first?
No, that one's Jasper.
This is Jasper. Okay.
That's Jasper. That's my current little guy.
That's your current dog. Obviously, your dogs mean a lot to you, and Jasper means a lot to you. And then this is just a beautiful thing she sent me with a picture of a dog. When Dana sent me the book. So that's just a little bit of, you've been on an incredible journey. I'm honored and blessed that God winked and put you in my life, and I had a chance to meet you in person and read your story, and now hopefully share it even further in the future, because I just think, we need to hear these messages so much more, and some people need to really, really hear it and hopefully impact them. And let me just see if there's a couple of people might have jumped on here, because
thank you so much.
Tony Rodriguez is on here, and I'm like, I'm ignoring him. He's making comments, and I'm ignoring him. He's gonna. Oh man, I'm gonna really suffer for ignoring him. He made a couple of and here's this one. We got to get this one up there. Dana is badass. That's a must from a good brother Rodriguez. So yes, he does sum you up, Dana, for sure. Then a few other people have just commented, and usually I'm on the comments, but this time I got so caught up in talking and listening to you. I like, oh God, comments. So this is Lena saying she loved the book so much. So yes, as did I. And then another a veteran friend of mine, a student of mine, just saying good afternoon and happy Palm Sunday. Good. Ken, he's a military vet of mine that I taught at film school. But anyway, that, it's been a great hour. And
oh my gosh, it went by so fast. I'm so grateful for you. Thank you.
I'm like, it's an hour already. Come on, it can't be. So anything you would like to finish up with? Oh, and I just want to finish up another God's wink. I know at one point I connected you with a friend of mine, Eileen Gruber, who has an amazing story. She was one of the first people I interviewed on my podcast as well, who's been a friend for ages. And her overcoming story and just who she is. And
she is a rock star. That's another badass. I love her so much.
I'm surrounded by all these badasses. I'm like, is this some amazing people? Just some amazing folks.
And you know what that makes you, John, right? That makes you a badass.
Well, I just thank you. And I'm just honored and grateful that I get to have people like yourself in my life because, like I said, when I was a high school dropout in the South Bronx, I never expected to have this kind of experience in life. I never even knew it was possible. That just, to me, it was survival. If I could survive, that was cool, and then of course it went way beyond that. So, it was an honor and a blessing for me to get to where I am and to meet people like you and have you in my life. But I thank you. I thank you so much for sharing your story and coming on here.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. It's such a blessing and honor. It truly is.
Well, thank you. It's mutual. And whatever I can do in the future, we should stay in touch. And if I can, whatever I can do to support you and help with maybe some of the projects you have in the future, or hopefully we'll end up at one of these events together with Tony Rodriguez so we can give him a hard time and
sure.
mess with him a little bit, but outside of that, thank you so much. You have a fantastic time and thank you for coming on and being part of this.
My pleasure.
And everybody, please, I can't recommend it high enough. Please go get on Amazon, go to your bookstore, get the book, read it, share it with your friends, share it with your family, and, use this to live courageously, just like Dana's been an example of. There you go. Yeah. Hey, you got my copy. So definitely have a great one. You enjoy the next event you're going to. And I look forward to talking to you and hearing about that. And let's stay in touch more.
All right. Thank you.
Okay.
Love you.
Love you too. Much love. Take care. Bye. Wow. So that was, as I wrap this up, that was an amazing, powerful story. Dana's story is something that it has to touch your heart. It has to inspire you. It has to give you courage, compassion, love, forgiveness, grit. I mean, she just exemplifies all of it. And I just hope that if you have a chance to watch this, that you'll share it with your friends, share it on social media, share her book, Falling Up. What a message. She took this horrible experience of being thrown off a cliff to be killed. And instead of talking about falling down, she turned it into falling up. And she transformed her life, and she's transforming other lives with her book, with her speeches, and with all that she does in the world with people. So please check out Falling Up, check out Dana. And thank you so much, everybody, for being part of this. And if you watch it in after it's over, you can also go to my YouTube channel, Live Courageously, and all the last 7 videos will be there. Have a fantastic day and God bless.